Welcome to the Masters of Wellness podcast, your ultimate path to holistic health, wellness, and success. Discover the powerful fusion of Eastern wisdom and Western science, designed to balance your mind, body, and spirit. Our channel brings you holistic wellness practices, effective strategies to boost productivity, and insights on stress reduction and active aging. Join our global community and transform your life with holistic wellness. Cheers to a healthier, happier you.
Hello, welcome back everyone to the Masters of Wellness podcast. We have a very special guest with us today. We are transcending time and space. For me, it's evening time. I happen to be in China as we're recording this episode, and Oscar's in Finland. Our topic today is actually talking about breath work and meditation and mindfulness, and it's something that I've been exposed to a great deal since I've been living in China. Back in the early days, I was an athlete. I was a physical education teacher. I was all about physical fitness and strength and agility and things like that. And one of my clients one day came to train with me, and he was actually a Tai Chi student. And my typical warm-up with clients was doing boxing or something a little bit high intensity to get their heart rate up. And the first time he showed up, he was a very calm gentleman, very sincere, very lovely. And I said, let's do some boxing. And he said, let's not. Let's maybe do some breathing or something like that. So he sort of taught me a lot about how to tone things down and still get the same incredible benefits physiologically from your body, from finding different tempos and different intensity levels to be able to exercise. And later on, when we did actually pull out the boxing pads, what he was doing on those boxing pads was 10 times more powerful than anything I'd ever done with someone doing boxing before, because the amount of energy and power he was able to generate through the fluidity and the technique of Tai Chi was absolutely incredible. So he was the first person that introduced me to the concept of breathing and meditation. I've been in China now for almost 20 years, so I've been exposed to a lot of traditional Eastern practices, mindfulness, meditation, sound therapy, growing your own tea, like things like this, absolutely completely holistic and just as close as you can get to nature as possible. So I'm very, very interested to learn more from our master, Oscar, about the concept of breathing and how to enhance our lives through the calm and the gentleness of breath work.
Cool. Thank you so much for the introduction. I started my breathwork journey at the age of 16, or maybe more my mindfulness journey with trying to sit and meditate. And I remember the first time my older brother had been watching me and my twin brother wrestle, fight, be extremely energetic 16-year-old boys living under the same roof. So it was a lot of energy. There was a lot of frustration. I had pretty easy to anger as a kid. I think insecurity, being misunderstood, and just having enormous amount of testosterone and hormones pumping through the body made me quick to trigger. So he was like, you need to learn meditation. It's going to be a superpower. Sent me some clips of Alan Watts, Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, I think was the first one he gave me. And we sat down to meditate, and I think he put like 15 minutes or something on the phone. And just a couple of minutes later, I was already in the kitchen looking through the cupboards, like escaping the silence and the presence. But he kept encouraging me, and I started doing it as often as I could. At that age, it was dabbling with it. Years passed by, I became early 20s, went to Australia for a year, and started reading more and more and listen more and more to philosophy. And I think the travel to Australia really started to break the patterns or the story that I had told myself of who I was, and this like crazy, I mean, a little bit of the clown of the class. That kind of identity shifted when I went to Australia. And then about 10 months into my Australia journey, I'm called up by my twin brother. I'm on my way to work. It's early morning there. I'm standing in a hostel. I was cleaning the hostel as well. I'd just done my morning shift cleaning, was on my way to work. My twin brother calls me, and I can hear on his voice that there's something that is a little bit off here. So I talked to him for a while, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna have to talk to Daniel," so my older brother. He comes on the phone, and he says, like, our mother has been diagnosed with cancer. It was, I think, liver and pancreas, so it was quite severe. My whole world twisted upside down. My mother was my best friend, super, super close to her. raised by her as well a lot during our young ages. The only thing I can remember is being shook to silence. Tears started streaming down my cheeks. I'm there, other side of the world, 20 years old, and like, oh my God, what's going on here? But shook that off, went to work that day, and booked a flight home. Got home in March 2016, and in April 2016, a month later, she passed away, while me, my twin brother, and my older brother sat next to her in her bed. She took her last breath, and when she took her last breath, something like clicks for me, because she was there when I took my first breath. And now I watched her take her last breath, and it was like, okay, we come into this earth on an inhalation, and that's described in the Bible, for an example, when God breathes into Adam, he breathes into his nostrils life, he becomes informed, he becomes into life. It was strange to see somebody actually leave, like, cause when that last breath happened, there was no more, there was just a shell left. So the existential questions that I had been playing around with from my late teens to my early 20s became extremely real and concretized. Like I was faced with death, and faced with like what happens after and what happened before, another interesting question. So that really created a burning curiosity for philosophy and for answers that I don't think I found as convincing in the Western spirituality or mysticism. So Christianity maybe as the foundation of that. The idea of heaven was and still is quite abstract. So I started looking for ideas that had been comforting before. So Eastern philosophies were more calling, or they suited me better. So I kept reading and I kept studying, got into breathwork to still the mind that was chaotic and unclear, emotions that had to be dealt with, grief, sadness, feeling unfairly treated of the world, all of that, just sitting with it and being okay with feeling all of that. So 2 years went by. I lived at my brother's apartment. The three of us, my twin brother and my older brother, we lived together after my mother passed away. Both me and my twin brother moved into my older brother's apartment to his inconvenience, you could say, but we crashed there for 2 years and we're really grateful for that. All three of us worked at a school as assisting teachers. And one day we were out walking in the forest and we discussed like, what do we want to do with our lives? What's close to our hearts? And we came up with 3 pillars. We said meditation or mindfulness, motion, because it's medicine, and then some sort of spirituality. And after a lot of researching, we said, okay, yoga seems to be really holistic in binding these 3 together. So we booked a trip down to India to do 500 hours yoga teacher training. We completed our 500 hours. I met Kira, my now partner of 6 years. 2019, me and her went back to India to teach. She was teaching the physical parts, the asana part of yoga, which is the moving part. And I was teaching the breathing part, the pranayama, or the philosophy. And we taught there until 2020 in March when Corona hit and it started to get really strict and scary. So everything was shut down. The Swedish embassy started contacting me. And after a while, they were like, okay, there is one flight going now and it's going to Finland. It's a rescue flight. And by this time, like, shops were closed. We were informed by a local friend of ours that there was like a black market open. So we went there, got some eggs and some fruits and a big jug of water. And 2 days later, the plane to Finland lifted. We got back to Europe. I got back into school, working in a school as an assisting teacher. Then I created Edelweiss Yoga Chalet, a wonderful place in Chamonix. So if you like yoga and want to have a retreat in the magical valley, go check it out. And then I went to Spain, taught some more breathwork and yoga. And that's when I created the Nordic Breathwork Academy.
Yoga obviously has different elements, different requirements to be a great yoga teacher. There's obviously the physical part, which takes a lot of work. I'm still getting there. But there's also the mental and emotional part and the spiritual part as well. I think all of those need to culminate together to make a really good yoga teacher. Now, I have met some yoga teachers over the years, doing the business that I do, designing programs and helping companies to grow in the health and wellness industry, and particularly in China. Like, I've invited yoga masters to visit China from time to time to teach some courses and things like that. There is a gap between the real true masters, where they live and breathe the essence of yoga, and then there's the ones that do it for business. You know, they've got some good technical skill or physical skill. They can do some really cool poses. It looks good and it looks very, very impressive. But, you know, I've met some pretty dodgy characters that have been like that are just doing it for the business side, like the opportunities. So what's your background that made you like not only that you've traveled to India and that you made the decision that these are the things you want to enhance about your life, but physically, like, what did you do for sport or for body movement before you decided to go to India and get into yoga?
So I've done football. So like from what, 5 to 14, I played a lot of football. Then from that, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, martial arts basically, but more submission based. I did the no-gi version, so without the special clothing, so just in a rash guard and a pair of shorts. So I've done another martial art called Kempo, did that for a few years as well. So, and then I was from age 15 to before I went to Australia, I was, what we call it. So it's a non-profit organization in Sweden called The Raven, translated, and it's like an umbrella organization that supports everything from pensioners to young kids that want to be in sports, but you maybe not be fit mentally, physically, emotionally to play for a regular team, but you really want to do football or hockey or innebandy or basketball, but you want to do it more in a playful and fun environment. So not too much about winning. So I was coaching kids in that, and that was a lot of exercise for me as well. We did boxing, we had a big indoor gym, we had the football, we had the innebandy, we had the parkour. So I was a parkour teacher as well. I think movement has always been a big part of my life. A lot of people, especially between like 15 and 20, describe me like a tiger from Winnie the Pooh, always bouncing. And in between the bouncing, rolling on the mats down in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym.
That kind of explains then that you had a pretty strong base for being able to do yoga. Because yoga is, I used to think it was about being really, really flexible, but then I found there's a lot more to it than that as well. Your mobility, your strength, your stability, control, balance. Like, there's so many elements that are developed through the practice of yoga. So I've certainly found it to be very, very helpful. Now, there are different types of yogas, obviously, like in India, or the type of yoga that you sort of pursued. Is that a particular style or a philosophy that you followed?
That's correct. I was trained in Ashtanga yoga as the basis, and Ashtanga means the 8 limbs of yoga, which I would say is a good start. So you have the eight steps. The first 2 steps is basically the 10 commandments. So don't harm, don't steal, don't engage in sexual things, and don't be greedy. Sexual things it says abstain from pleasure. So don't non-violence, truthfulness, don't steal, abstain from pleasure. And I would say that would be, for me, like, doesn't only have to be sexual. It can be chocolate as well, or glass of wine, or marijuana, whatever it might be that you seek pleasure from. Try to minimize it. You can see it as a dopamine fast. And then you have the non-greed. And then you have the 5 other ones, which is cleanliness, contentment, self-discipline or self-study, and study of the Holy Scriptures, and then surrender to the highest power. And here is where yoga becomes a religion to some extent, or at least Ashtanga. as the writer of this is called Patanjali, the seven-headed snake, is the author of the Yoga Sutras, which would be the foundation of yoga philosophy. So surrender to a supreme being. It is said in the Yoga Sutras that this could be any deity. When in meditation for long enough, a deity would reveal itself to you. This might be Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, whatever deity reveals itself, the Godhead shows to you, that will be what you surrender to, and you let go of your ego. Then you have the third step, which is asana, or physical movement, which is what most people see yoga as. Fourth step of the lowest levels on the 8th path of yoga is pranayama, which is breath work. So here you start handling a lot like in Tai Chi. You start focusing in on the more subtle levels of energy in the body. Then you have sense withdrawal as the 5th step. Then you have concentration. Then you have meditation. And then you have liberation or samadhi. So those are the 8 steps that yoga philosophy is built upon, and the Ashtanga yoga is built upon.
In the society that a lot of Western countries are living in now, it's like the hedonistic, dopamine-driven society of short-term pleasure, short-term rewards. If you open Facebook and LinkedIn and all of these social media apps, the first thing that fly up in your feed is how to make money, how to optimize your business, how to use AI for marketing, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's all about the quick fix. But I think there's something to be said for the traditional Eastern methodologies for many different things, not only yoga, but breathwork, meditation, making tea, like all of these things is about the slow, detailed process and enjoying each of those steps. Like, for example, making green tea. Green tea obviously is famous in China and other Eastern countries. I used to go to the supermarket, buy the tea bag of green tea and pop it in the boiling water, and then there you go, you got some green tea. But the first time I visited a green tea farm and learnt from the master, like, first it was 1 or 2 hours of education about the history and the background of green tea. And then we went out to the green tea gardens and he was explaining what the leaves should look like and which leaves are optimum to pick and things like that. And then you pick a bowl of leaves and then you go to dry them. And the drying method is not using some fancy ovens or anything. It's like done through a traditional sort of cooking methods. And then there's the squeezing, there's getting the juice out. Like, it's a process. It takes hours and hours, if not days and weeks. And then finally you get to enjoy this incredible experience. And even serving of the tea itself is artistic. The ladies do the special movements and pour the tea and everything. Oh my God, like, I never imagined something so simple, to enjoy a cup of tea, the background behind it, like the thousands of years of history that have gone into creating this practice. But if you're in a Western country and you go to Woolworths or Walmart or whatever like that, you just go and pick up the tea bags off the shelf. And people have kind of lost the understanding of where a lot of these traditional methods have come from. And that same goes for yoga as well. You can open up the internet now and learn how to do a downward dog or a salute to the sun pose. But tell us about the history of where that has come from, just as an example.
Yeah. And I think a lot of things we miss out is, why am I doing this? I mean, the tea, for example, I didn't know this, but the professionals, they wanted to be I guess it's a little bit the same with coffee, but you even wanted to be in a perfect temperature range. I had one of my students, he would never pour like 100-degree water straight on. He would wait until it was like in a range of maybe 80 or 74 or something like that. Okay, now it's ready. I'm like, I appreciate the slowness of it. But for me, it's all the moving yoga has one purpose, and it's to prepare you for the higher limbs. So when you can move, or when you have moved enough and you can sit comfortably in Padmasana, which is the lotus posture. Perfect. Like it prepares you to sit comfortably in lotus. For me, that's the purpose of the moving. When you can sit still and enjoy your body in stillness without like, my upper back is nagging me or my hip or my knee. So the third step, asana, you move your body, everything gets mobilized. As you said, I think it's the perfect balance between stretchiness and strength. You have mobility. So when all of that is in place, you can start sitting. And when you can start sitting, you can start focusing on your breath. And when you can start focusing on your breath and slow down your breath. So we take on average 23,000 breaths per day, 8 million per year, 670 million breaths in a lifetime, if you have the luxury to live until you're 80. So there's a lot of breaths. They're very shallow. These shallow breaths stimulate our sympathetic nervous system, so our fight or flight. So we always have excess cortisol in our bloodstream, premature aging. We also get lower CO2 in our bloodstream, which contracts our blood vessels and our airways. So higher risk for cardiovascular diseases, strokes, and just poorer breathing in general. So when you learn to slow down your breath, gain breath control, you start exhaling longer than you inhale. You start stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system. You get a deep relaxation. Your mind becomes quiet. And when your mind becomes quiet, all of a sudden you will start to go through what I call the memory library. And the memory library, if you haven't been in there a lot, it's like a computer that's been used for 10 years but never cleaned up. It is chaotic. There is shit in the bin. Every folder is packed. You have no idea what it is. And random things will just pop at you. Like, oh my God, did I do that when I was 14? And oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. And it's going to be a process. But as you sit with it, you start clearing through it. You start cleaning up the library. So when you come in there, it becomes this beautiful garden where you can enjoy your cup of tea instead of having cringe moments from when you were a teen popping up. It's birds chirping, and you've created this beautiful inner place. And then liberation or samadhi happens automatically.
There is an area of that journey where your mind is super active, like you said, thinking of the cringe moments. And then if you go too far, you go to sleep. Like I personally have fallen asleep before. I've seen people fall asleep during the classes, but the instructor or the teacher always says, like, don't go to sleep. That area there is the most important space to keep yourself in. Like, how do you keep yourself there without becoming super active or without going to sleep? It takes practice, right?
Exactly. I think for most people, or for everybody, it's a skill, like with everything. And in the beginning, especially when the breath starts to slow down and you get the relaxation, it's easy to fall asleep or to nod off. But the more you get into that space and the more you start realizing that, okay, now I have arrived here, the more I think it's the closest I've come to describe it is presence. And the longer you can be present in any day-to-day life, the more out of life you will get. So as I mentioned, with the 23,000 breaths, very few of them we are present of. So they happen to us very few times. It's unclear how much of my daily actions are conscious or unconscious. Like how much am I just driven along by the meat suit? And if I'm not present, then I will be driven along to eat, to sleep. But the more I can practice presence, the more I can be in that state that you described. And it takes time, but I find it a beautiful thing to explore, as when you have crossed the hurdle, what you will get back as a feedback loop will be this place where you're not in a rush. There's a quote that has stuck with me for the longest of time. It goes something like this: all these days that came and went, I didn't know that they were life. So you can find yourself rushing along from teacup to teacup to teacup. And as you said, you've never truly experienced it or reflected. You've always been on to the next thing. And by starting to yoga nidra is maybe one of the easiest practices where falling asleep is a thing. So yogic sleep, we have a few of them on YouTube, but there you basically lay down, you close your eyes, and you're being guided through a body scan and then through some visualizations. And probably the first 100 yoga nidras I did, always fall asleep. But then, okay, now I can allow myself to be present throughout the 45 minutes or an hour. And it's such a weird sensation of pleasure or contentment that I have a hard time afterwards. The more shallow pleasures, chocolate or a drink, they become more empty. The pursuit of those, not even mundane, but those short-lived dopamine hits, it become clear that this is not a sustainable chase.
Hmm. And I guess, like, even if we use the example of chocolate, it's not to say don't eat chocolate. It's just that when you're eating chocolate, consider it in a different way. Where has this cocoa bean come from? Who are the people that worked hard to bring this to me? Such a delicious, tasty gift given from the universe for us to enjoy. And I can taste it in my mouth and let it melt. Like, there's so much more you can do with that experience that turns it into something memorable and meaningful as well, rather than just, I'm going to smash some chocolate down or some beers or something like that.
I totally agree, and I've had this discussion a lot lately about the other. I think it's equally as easy to become a slave to the mind prison of, like, I should not eat chocolate because chocolate is bad, and if I eat it, I have to berate myself as a Christian and like repent. There is nothing inherently bad in eating chocolate. You can even get a lot out of it, especially if you do it, as you said, like presently. Like, okay, can I suck on this piece of chocolate until it has completely melted and truly enjoy the flavors and the consistency and the journey of it from Congo to here? Like, is that possible? Like, there's so much more that you can enjoy out of it. And there is, as Buddha said, there is always the golden middle way. Like, don't go too extreme to one end. And I think with chocolate as an example, like, oh, this wasn't spiritual of me to do, or, oh no, I had a cup of coffee, I shouldn't do that. Well, you did enjoy it, like enjoy the flavors and the adrenaline and cortisol rush or whatever it might be, but do try to be present and conscious with your actions. I love fasting for that as a practice, because it becomes really, really clear really fast. Day 2, okay, my mind has way more power over me than I would like to admit, or especially maybe even the first 24 hours. For me, 48 hours in, it starts to be like, oh my God, this might not even be good for me. I have to go on Google, but a tough agree, or it's actually, it's cleansing, it is good.
Yeah. Well, like, one of those rules you talked about was like withholding pleasure. You talked about sex, but not only sex, but like having the discipline to stop yourself from doing something that's really, really pleasurable. Like, that discipline there transfers into many aspects of your life. Like, if you are a disciplined person, it means you will tend to make better decisions for your life, for your family, and for your future, because you're not a slave to the quick fixes or what's the most easy. I remember January 2015. I was on my 4th Starbucks coffee for the day, and I was shaking just from habit. Every day I'd go to the coffee shops and do work online, and that was kind of the lifestyle. And it just happened that this day I was on my 4th coffee, and Starbucks coffees are not small, like those grandes or ventis, they're huge. So I was like shaking, and I said to myself, this is not good for me. Okay, I'm going to go 5 days with no coffee. I just said like that, 5 days, no coffee. I went 5 days. The first few days, torture, like very, very difficult. You got the throbbing headache and can't sleep and all sorts of things. So I got to 5 days and I thought it must have really not been good for me because the withdrawal was terrible. So I'm going to go 5 weeks. So I went for 5 weeks and it got easier over time. When I got to 5 weeks, I thought I can do 5 weeks. I'm going to do 5 months. So I went for 5 months, no caffeine at all, like not even tiramisu or anything like that. And I got to 5 months and I said, I'm going to go 5 years. So I literally went from January 2015 to January, at the end of January 2020, which was the beginning of COVID time, 5 years. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to, after 5 years is 50 years. So I don't need to be that extreme. But I wanted to prove to myself that I can do it. I can make a decision on something and I can do it. And being an exercise professional, like I'm always talking to people about motivation and inspiration and just creating good habits and things like that. So, you obviously need to be a good example and show people that it's possible to be able to do it. Not only doing the good things that are good for you, but not doing the things that are not so good for you as well. Like caffeine is not going to kill me, but being locked into that feeling of I need to have my coffee every day, that is not good for your mind. So overcoming that, I found my life improved dramatically during that 5 years. Like career opportunities opened up, relationships were better, time management, all of these things just improved a lot because that one discipline then branched out or grew into other disciplines as well.
That's so inspiring. I've had a lot of coffee fast as well, not as long as 5 years, but I usually do a couple of weeks at a time. And I love when I meet and hear people say that they only drink coffee for the taste, which is maybe the most common. Like, oh no, I'm not addicted. I only drink it for the taste.
And I also found there's a difference in what Western people typically do compared to when you go to Europe. Like recently, so now it's April. In February, we traveled to Europe. We went to Italy and Croatia, and sitting and having a little coffee, like a macchiato in Italy, on the street, on the coffee shop. That is like a memorable experience. It's like embracing the culture and people watching and that, like, it's absolutely unbelievable. Like, it was such a great experience and really gave me an appreciation of the people that are making that coffee really, really put some care and attention into making that small little coffee. And those coffees in Europe are tiny compared to the giant buckets that you get at Starbucks. Oh my God. Because it's about appreciating, it's not about the size of it, it's about the intensity and the enjoyment of that moment, not just the fact that you're trying to get as much caffeine into your body as possible.
Any area you can find in your life where you can practice the discipline or the withdrawal from pleasure, I think it's good. I've had loads of students throughout the years suffering with porn addiction and having trouble to withdraw from that side of it. And I usually say, like, okay, but if that's hard, start with food, for an example. Like, build up a momentum. Like, okay, how long can I withstand food for? Okay, now you can do it. Build another discipline. Like, can I take a 45-minute walk every day or a half an hour walk every day? Can I do a simple yoga class? It doesn't have to be a 2.5-hour Ashtanga class. It is 15 minutes before bed. Like, can we start building some positive momentum and routines and then tackle your big addiction, so to speak, when you have rewired your network in the back of your mind, constantly feeding you the identity that you have or the pattern that you have.
Let's talk about how has that moving into India and learning about yoga and breathwork and all of these incredible, beautiful practices, how did it help you to go through your trauma that you first identified?
So after losing my mother, really life got twisted upside down. And by starting to sit down and starting to actually tune into what we are and what this experience actually is, I think I awoken from some sort of sleepwalking or unawareness to the absolute wonder and awe of this experience. Like, everything is so incredibly fine-tuned, which before I learned mindfulness, meditation, and breathwork, I was not aware, or I was not awoke or awake enough to see it or to appreciate it. To just sit a day outside and feel the sun, hear the birds, look down into the grass and the thousands of organisms and instincts, like everything, how everything works. And it has given me joy of life and appreciation of life. I have to phrase this as a belief, but for me, it's more of a innate knowing that death is not the final part. We're in some sort of cycle, just like spring, summer, fall, and winter. Then we have spring again. If we were to see, usually like to see life on a timeline. And that timeline was inherent to us by Jewish philosophy. So we have Abraham and the prophets, and then Moses came and was delivered out of Egypt, and so on. We have a timeline. But prior to that, and Eastern philosophies don't really see time as linear, it's more cyclical. So by practicing and listening and fine-tuning my own body, I've awoken to the cyclical nature of this existence, which has helped me with grief and with an overall positive outlook on this life, which has given me a very, very happy and content relationship.
So where do you believe the presence or the soul or the spirit of your mother is now?
Back into this existence. I believe that the self with the capital S is not so much individual as we would like to think. So I believe she will come with the spring here in Finland now. The flowers have started to come back. So in each and every flower I can see her. In each of the sun rays I can feel her. In the birds singing I can hear her. So I believe that she was recycled back into this existence. And in the words of Yogananda, now I have the tenderness of 10,000 mothers all around me. I have pondered a lot upon I guess, how would I define, or I could ask you, like, how would you define yourself? And here, I think Shakespeare gives a good thing when he says, I think it's Julia and Romeo, when he says like, I swear by a rose in the garden, and she says like, but a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet. So like, if you were to call me John, would the essence of me still be the same? Like, what defines me? Obviously not my name, not my titles. So like, what is me? And I love, would you, speaking of heaven in earlier, like because it's abstract for me, like if there would be a place as heaven, what would come there? I've asked a lot of Christians this. Like if I were to die at the age of 80, would like an 80-year-old me come there with a cane and grayed hair and wrinkles, or would I appear like this in my 30s, or will I come in my 60s? Like when and how or what would come to heaven? So the Christians say what they say. We have obviously the meat suit, have the soul, and I think they say we have the spirit as well. And I think they say the spirit goes there, and the spirit probably closer to what more Eastern philosophy says with the capital self. It seems to be all that there is. There seems to be no or very little individuality to it. It doesn't have too much actual interference with the experience. When you go to bed tonight, think how it would be to go to bed and never wake up. And when you thought long enough about that, another question will be proposed to you. How was it to wake up after never going to sleep? And that's when you were born. So it seems that would be the most obvious thing, that when we wake up again, that's when we're born.
Yeah, and we keep people alive in our memories. It's certainly something that's practiced in Eastern countries very, very deeply, like the keeping the incense burning and the photos of the dearly departed in your home, and looking at them and talking to them and including them in your celebrations continually, even after they're physically not here. And I think this is a practice in Mexico as well. There's a really really cool movie, a
The Day of
cartoon
the
movie.
Dead, Mama Coco.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah, 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 yeah.
I think
Coco. Yeah, I think it's just called Coco.
it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, incredible. And oh my God, I cried so much in that movie, but cried from happiness to realize this is the cycle. And even at the end, Mama Coco is an old lady that passes away, but she was once a little young girl that had her life in front of her as well. And this is the cycle of life. We look at our children and we know that they will continue after we move on as well. It's the cycle, and I guess we need to be grateful to be a part of it because we are lucky to have this opportunity to exist, to enjoy this part of the journey.
It's a fantastic journey. It is such a miracle, life. It's beyond comprehension. To a large extent, demystified everything, and we're so heavily leaning on science as some sort of ultimate explanation of this. But even there, we have to grant the scientists a few really big miracles. The Big Bang is one of the closest to come. So there was nothing or a singularity that created everything. If we can give you that grant, that miracle, then okay, the rest of the theory could be built upon. But it's still I think there is still a lot of unknowns. And is it Socrates that said, "The only thing I know is that I know nothing"? And I think that's a good starting point in life, acknowledging you're being humble enough to not have too much of the June Kruger effect, it might be called. The less you know about a subject, the more you think you know. But the more you know about the subject, the less you realize you know.
And it is in our nature to try and control and know and learn everything, but some things are not meant to be known. I think even if we fast forward humanity for the next 500,000 years, they will still not know. They still will not know, and I guess that's part of the experience. If we were to know, like if we knew everything for a fact from the beginning to now and in the future, that would suck. What would be the point of waking up every day and knowing that we're just a part of the timeline? So not knowing is what makes it extremely exciting.
100%, and that's back to one of Alan's other mind ideas where he says, if you could go, like if everything that is the self or Brahma or whatever name you want to give to the creator, or just the universe itself, experience itself, if we were all that and we started incarnating here as the self, as the Godhead, and in the beginning we were like, okay, we can do everything. So I had all the girls, all the cars, all the money, all the fame. How many lifetimes would I find that funny? After a while, I would be like, let's incarnate, but let's forget I am the Godhead. To make it more funny, to make it interesting, to make it like worth the while. And then when we come back to where we came before here, we'll be like, whew, that was a close shave. But we'll probably go and do it again. Yes, for the jokes of it. Like and I think you could see that in kids. Every single kid wants to go on adventures. That's part of this thing. Like we're here to explore, and for us to be able to explore, we obviously can know what we're exploring. Guys, but take the fun out of it.
Yeah, and I think every time we are reincarnated and come back as a new physical being, we're starting from zero again in terms of our memory, or maybe there's some innate memory built into us where we think, oh, I've experienced this before. They call it deja vu, something like that. But I think not knowing and starting from zero each time makes every life journey a wonderful experience. It's like, I love Italian food. I love spaghetti bolognese, but if I was to eat that every day for the rest of my life, it'd be very, very boring. Having the variety and new experiences in life is what certainly makes it incredibly interesting. And I really admire that yourself and your partner have traveled around the world and experienced different cultures. For a Western person to visit and live in an Eastern society, that's a completely different environment and world. And likewise the other way around as well. People that live in Eastern countries and go to experience the West as well. I think there's something to be said for putting yourself out of the comfort zone. The reason I first came to China in 2007 was I had a wonderful life living on the Gold Coast in Australia, driving a nice car and enjoying the sunshine and going to the beach every day. But I'd never really traveled or experienced any other cultures. So I decided to visit my brothers who happened to be in China at that moment for different reasons. But I came over and I thought this is completely upside down, a different type of life that I've ever experienced before. So I want to immerse myself in it and try it out. I originally came over for 6 months and now it's been almost 20 years because I absolutely love it. Every day is a new adventure. You don't follow the tourist, if you're going to visit China or any country, go and spend some time there, a month or a few months, and immerse yourself into the real culture, experience it, and then review your original perceptions and opinion about it. So having learnt what I've learnt from just this experience living in this country, my mind is completely opened and unbiased and non-judgmental. I think if any Western person was to spend some time in an Eastern country, you would stop judging 100% and then you'd realize everything that you're fed every day is complete rubbish. So
Exactly.
I wish more people would experience it.
Most of us, unknowingly or knowingly, have fallen victim of a narrative or a story being told.
Yeah. So, Oscar, just sort of moving into what you do now, like you're obviously a coach. Like, how do you now work with people to help them improve their life?
Thanks for asking. So here in Finland, me and Kira does workshops from time to time in Helsinki or around the place where we live. We're about 45 minutes outside of Helsinki, but I also work with people online. I have the Nordic Breathwork Academy where you can join for single sessions. You can join to use the Breathwork Fundamental course, where we have 4 sessions online where we go through the fundamentals of breathwork. And then you can, after that, do the breathwork teacher training, where we dive more into what type of breathworks, how you do the breathworks, and you get to either teach me or another student those breathworks as well. And then at the end of each session, you'll get feedbacks on your teaching, and we tailor, and all the questions and wonderings that might have popped up throughout the sessions will be able to be answered by me. So that's basically how I work at the moment.
This can all be done online, right? People don't need to be face to face?
No, that's online. If you are in Finland and would like to book a session or keep an eye out for when we do sessions in Helsinki, that would be a recommendation. But we do it online through either Riverside or Zoom. Mostly I use Zoom.
And
so if you're
what's
interested in
what's an example of some of the people that come to you seeking support or help?
I've had previous yoga teachers, I have had authors, I've had entrepreneurs, CEOs. One woman that was on my breathwork teacher training, she's running a vineyard in Spain. I've had, what are they called? Like buyers for big companies that feel a lot of stress. I've had painters, I've had construction workers, I've had influencers. So basically people from all walks of life that has realized that this biological function that happens automatically to me about 23,000 times a day is a little bit wrongly calibrated. So you might suffer from anxiety, stress, even physical ailments like trapezius that are stiff, that leads to necks that is stiff, that leads to headaches, sleeping problems. I've worked with athletes that want to improve their cardiovascular system. So I've worked with a few ultra marathon athletes. That's been 2 Swedish dudes that have been running a lot and wanted to improve their cardio basically. So yeah, people from all walk of lives, from anxiety and stress to sleep to basic overall health. And I think we're seeing a true epidemic in the world where people are struggling with tools to handle it. Like burnouts are on a rise. People are on antidepressants. Like the numbers in America are crazy that people are that are on medications for depression. I think we're coming to a bottleneck where the tools that we have used and the stress of constantly rising inflation and everything is there's war, and there's things, as you said, from the basics to like I need to get food to like what's going to happen with the world and the future. A lot of people are feeling the pressure and the stress, and the tools that we have been given, most of us, is Netflix, chocolate, beer, wine, and marijuana. That's basically the tools that people have been given. The coping strategies. Most of them don't activate your parasympathetic nervous system. They keep agitating the sympathetic nervous system, so your fight and flight. I think my biggest goal has been to bridge the gap between the Eastern and the Western. So I think a lot of people, when they think meditation, they think breath work, they think a person in an orange robe that does something magical or mystical that is not actually measurable or definable. But I think Western science has caught up a lot in actually showing. I'd love to go down the esoteric paths and the more mystical part of the breathwork as well, but I also love to anchor it in what actually happens on a physiological level. When you bring down the breathing, start using your diaphragm. Like, okay, the diaphragm, 70% of your respiratory system. Most people don't use it. You can ask people, this is a fun thing. I usually ask people to take a deep breath. And most people, it looks like this. So chest comes out, shoulders comes up, and belly comes in. When you're breathing like this, you're only using about 30% of your respiratory system, and you're an opposite breather. So a really deep breath, belly should come out, then chest can puff up a little bit, but most people don't even use the diaphragm. So a lot of people think that they know how to breathe, and then you actually start breaking it down and you realize, okay, you're constantly, chronically breathing unhealthy. So you're basically constantly telling your body to be in a fight or flight response. So not only is life happening, kids to school, bills to pay, rising costs, war on the horizon, whatever it might be that's giving you stress, a company to run. On top of all of this, your breathing pattern is unbalanced or untuned. And I guess a little bit what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, has the pressure of society unbalanced your breathing pattern, or have our breathing pattern unbalanced society? I fully don't know yet. I'm still digging into what happened there, but it's clear that our breathing pattern chronically is messed up, and it takes some time to get it back. But it's enough with 5 minutes a day. If you do 5 minutes a day, you will be miles ahead in a couple of months, and in a year, you won't even recognize your own breathing patterns. It will be slower, smoother. One thing I love with the Chinese and the Tai Chi is in yoga, a lot of us teachers would guide the breath to be, we call it ujjayi breathing or ocean breath or victorious breathing. So it will be slightly audible. So maybe not the neighbor can hear it, but you should definitely hear it. But the Japanese and the Chinese, they said that a true breath is mastered when it's completely silent and the hair in your nose doesn't even move. Then you know you have mastered the breath. So deep, silent, and calm breathing. I think I listen a lot when I'm around people, and you can often hear people breathing. Like, it's quite a heavy, restricted breathing. So not only short and shallow, but also like, okay, it's even audible. So you're struggling to perform the most basic task, which is breathing. So
Oscar, I'm going to add some links into this podcast for people to follow, where they can follow some of your short practices as well, so that they know how to do it, and also be able to contact you.
Ask yourself why, when, and how as a top 3. So why am I doing this breath work? When should I do it, and how should I do it? So I'd like to give you the tip that there's 3 categories of breath work. There's balancing breath works, there's energizing breath works, and there's calming breath works. They do what they say on the tin. If you need to balance your nervous system, do a breathing as simple as 4-4. So inhale for 4, exhale for 4. If you want to do a relaxing breath work, inhale for 4, exhale for 8. And if you want to do an energizing breath work, do a Wim Hof breathing or a breath of fire. And if you really want to dive deep into this and learn, start by booking the breathwork fundamentals with me. It's a 4-session course. Usually do it on Monday evenings, finish time, but we can work around as well. And there we get all into the 3 different categories. You'll be equipped with the breathworks that suit each of the things and when you should do them. We also tailor a little breathwork schedule to you throughout the day, which usually is 15 minutes, divided 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at lunch, and then 5 minutes at bedtime. During these 4 sessions, I usually do 1 a week. You'll build this routine in during the month, and during that month daily, you will have started to reprogram your default network. So your inner critic and the patterns you have been doing, that's been changed during the month. And this is built on studies from Harvard University that show that about a month of 15 minutes a day is enough to reprogram the default network in your mind so you can be a new person, or at least have created new patterns and a new mental flexibility to adversity, depression, stress, anxiety, or sleeping patterns. Children start by gently laying down in bed, 1 or 2 hands on your belly, and then just focusing on deep belly breathing. So when you breathe in, imagine the belly expanding like a balloon into your hands, and then as you're exhaling, allow that balloon to deflate, and just practice deep belly breathing. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'd say optimally a minute for every year they are. So like if they're 5 years old, maybe try to do 5 minutes, but I could easily see starting it with just a simple 1 minute and then build it up from there.
Yeah, I think having worked with children in sport, I was a PE teacher many years ago. There's times and there's certain situations where children become anxious or angry or emotional when they're playing sport together. So I think that emotional management is something that I believe breathwork can really help with. That a lot of teachers maybe are not really equipped. They tell the children to stop crying or get up and keep going and just shrug it off and get over it, like that type of thing. But there's something to be said for rather than externally people telling you what to do, teaching children how to be able to, when they feel something coming, brewing, knowing how to be able to manage it, because that skill in itself is going to help them the rest of their life, right?
Exactly, and that's back to the how, what, when. So I was told a lot as a kid, like, just take 10 deep breaths. Okay, but why should I take 10 deep breaths? Okay, but when you slow down your breathing, this is what happens. Like, okay, so I can become a biohacker, or like make it something cool and relatable as well. Like maybe they won't, like if I start using lingo as like, the parasympathetic nervous system, they might be like, but when you slow down your breathing and we take 10 deep breaths together, observe and feel like heart rate goes down. Oh, that thing that was bubbling up also starts to slow down. So if they're really small and visual, you can start talking about like a pot of water that starts bubbling. I like that visual. And like, okay, feel how that bubble and steam starts to slow down as we're on breath 3, and you can guide them all the way through as well. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. It's really, really hard to be close to exploding when you do deep, steady breathing.
Yeah. And I've seen parents and teachers doing things like go and stand in the corner. When you can behave, then you can come back. Like things like this is really counterproductive and probably just makes the situation worse. I think the skills that you're talking about for children, it starts with the parents first. Often parents are projecting their own anxiety or emotions onto children. Children tend to go very, very quiet when they see that the energy in the room is becoming stressful, or there's some arguments happening, or some sharp words being shared between adults, and children typically will become quiet. So I think it's really, really important for parents to understand that everything that is happening in your environment, the energy is being shared with everybody in your home, positive and negative energy. So teaching parents how to do breath work and manage their energy then will also project onto the children, and children can benefit from it as well. It's no good for parents just to tell children go and take 10 deep breaths, but meanwhile the parents are shouting at each other.
Exactly. Shouting at somebody at the counter at the supermarket, like, you mislabeled this, or what do they say? Children do what we do, not what we say. So I think
Yeah.
lead with example. And what breathwork basically is a tool to self-regulate, to soothe your nervous system and to balance your body. Like, and there's no, I'll see how I'll say, there is no magical like hocus pocus mysticism in that part of it. It's basic physiological biomechanics. Like this is without a shadow of a doubt proven to have been working. So I've had a lot of, like, the first objection is like, I'll try that once and it didn't work for me. So first of all, like, what were you doing a breathwork for? Well, like, oh, stress and anxiety is, well, okay, what breathwork did you do? So, oh, I did Wim Hof or rebirthing breathing, or like, okay, so that's fast paced, big breaths. Like, it's super counterproductive if you want to soothe your nervous system.
Yeah.
It's designed to do the opposite. So obviously it didn't work. If you're not ready to sit on the floor yet, okay, sit in a chair then. Or, God forbid, be reclined in your bed with a couple of pillows, but start taking 5 minutes each and every single day without stimuli. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be comfortable. But on the other side of that, there is an immense freedom from mental slavery. I think it's Bob Marley that said we must emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. And the only way to free your mind and to get out of the maze is to start focusing on it, solving it rather. And the only way to dissolve it is to start turning your gaze inward. I think another quote from Carl Jung is, one who looks outside dreams, one who looks inside awakens. Well, if you want to learn how to be fully present and to reap the most out of this experience, then presence is the key. And the easiest way to become present is to sit and be still. Be still and know that I am God.
Don't think, if you're a guy, if you're a girl, if you're a superhuman CEO of a company, you don't have to be God. We are all humans. We all face the same thoughts and doubts and challenges in our life. It's okay to ask for help, especially men these days. We've been so need to be a guy, just suck it up and that type of thing. It's okay to drop it down a notch and reach out, ask for someone to chat to, and get some advice for how to work through some things yourself. And that's the difference with medication and self-practicing. Medication usually masks some symptoms, doesn't solve any problems. In learning how to manage your mind and emotions and physiology and things like that yourself means that you become the medicine, you become the cure, you become the healer of yourself. And that's my advice for everyone out there listening, is it takes courage to ask for help, but the benefits of that will come back to you many, many times over. And if you have any thoughts or struggles or difficulties in your life, we are here to chat with you and to share some experience and just have an ear to listen to or a shoulder to cry on. Contact us.
I couldn't agree more.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on any of the audio podcasts. Share the love. We're just a couple of people here sharing some experience and love with the world, and hope that everyone can be healthy and happy. Thank you so much, Oscar, for your time today.
Thank you.